This strike's going to impact more than you realize. Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. And last night, the United Auto Workers went on strike against Ford, GM, and Stellantis, also known as Chrysler. It's Jeep, Dodge, Ram that builders those vehicles. They went on strike after they had put forward numerous demands to the three different automakers, and it's a big change. So new UAW president Sean Fain kind of threw out the rule book on the prior negotiations with UAW, and what he decided to do was negotiate with each company individually. Historically, they would get together and he'd negotiate with one company, or UAW would, and whatever that company went with, everybody else would kind of agree to. In this case, it was not that way, and his list of demands are pretty startling from the outside eyes. He wants, increase 36% increase in pay over the next 4 years, coinciding with what the CEOs have made in the last 10 years or so of increased pay. They want to go back to pension systems. They want to work a 4-day work week. They want more different tiered systems for getting more auto workers into full-time employment. And it makes sense, right? So over the past 10 years, automakers have made billions of dollars. New vehicle pricing has gone up 30%, while wages have only gone up 6%. And so with inflation, auto workers are actually making less today than they did just couple years ago. So the UAW, in my opinion, has a good point of view. They have reasonable demands that they have seen things change. Are their demands reasonable for automakers? That's been the other kicker of this whole conversation. So you've had recently, I just watched an interview with GM's Mary Barra, who talked on the CBS Sunday mornings. I've seen the interviews with Jim Farley, the Ford CEO, and we haven't really talked to Stellantis because who knows who in charge of that company. That CEO, I think, is over in Europe somewhere. So we've heard from GM and Ford, and both the CEOs have said we just cannot afford to meet the demands that the auto workers union wants completely. And their point of view is not that they can't meet it today. It's that looking at long-term effects of these contract negotiations, they do agree to that contract. What happens 5, 10, 15 years from now as those contracts change, as far as they get more and more pay going out, and they have to make sure that the businesses are able to keep operating in the future. That's what the CEOs are saying. And so you can tell I'm doing my hands thing because this is going to be a very controversial topic. I grew up in Michigan. I remember the UAW was a huge deal in Michigan. Um, remember meeting with different members. My dad was with GM, but he was a white collar. He was above the union, but he had friends in the union, and so it was always a really interesting dynamic going on in Michigan between the white collar employees, the blue collar employees who were trying to get on full time status. So if you don't know, a lot of times GM will hire people as contract. And then you're talking, I've seen guys go 18, 20 years without then being put on full time. And what that full time means is now you get invested in the profit sharing, you get invested in the healthcare, you get invested in the benefits from the company. As a contract, you don't. And so this is going to be really interesting. They have done what UAW is doing currently is they're striking at 3 plants. You have the Wentzville, Missouri plant, you have the Michigan Assembly plant, and you have the Toledo, Ohio plant. And so those 3 plants, they've kind of pick and choose where they wanted it to strike at. They have like 145,000, 147,000 members. It's only like 13,000 members that are on strike. The problem with the news on the strikes is that it's not just the plants that are going to be impacted by this. It's going to be a bigger impact than you'd realize. And what I mean by that is if you look closely at these plants, people always say, well, my truck was built in Michigan or my truck was built in Missouri. No, no, no. Your truck was assembled at a plant. That means they brought in a bunch of parts, they brought the workers on the line, and the workers bolted the parts to the truck. Well, what I mean by that and why I think that's important is that when a plant is on strike, they'll order less parts and they'll have less parts being built. So that means that the suppliers who build those parts are going to be impacted. That means the transport companies that deliver those parts are going to be impacted. The transport companies deliver your truck to a dealership. Those are often smaller companies or they're independent contractors. They're going to be impacted, right? The salesmen at the dealerships will be impacted by this because they'll eventually, how long the strike goes on, they'll have less inventory to sell. The district managers, the regional offices, globally, we're going to have some impact. A lot of parts that go on vehicles are made in Mexico. There's also a lot of parts built in Hong Kong, in China, when we slow down our assembly of these plants, we're going to see an impact there. Now, is every plant going to be impacted the same? Every automaker going to be impacted the same? No. There's going to be some impacts though on non-union automakers. Toyota, Nissan, Honda. You're like, why would those guys be impacted? Well, look, automakers again assemble vehicles, and those assembly of vehicles are parts that are from different parts suppliers. And so, yeah, look at like the Takata airbag. Takata Airbag was one of the world's largest auto companies for airbags. They supplied airbags for all different brands. So yeah, there are some commonality in parts between a Ford, a Toyota, a GM, or whatever that will be impacted by this. You're going to have some impacts there as well, slowing down. Not much fiberglass being built, much sheet metal being stamped. You'll have some impacts there as well. So hopefully this gets resolved rather quickly. Now the UAW has a strike fund, which means that's what they pay their workers who aren't going to the plant, who are on strike. And it's a pretty sizable amount. I haven't heard an exact figure yet, but as long as that strike fund is in place, they can afford to pay for these employees to be on strike. If that fund runs out, you're going to have a lot of stress in UAW as the plants slow down and production halts at different plants, and you have less and trucks being built. It's going to hurt automakers, and then that's going to hurt communities. So again, this is bigger than you think of. Like the state of Michigan relies a lot on auto industry, and that spills out to the rest of the country. And so my fear is that we're going to have a long strike, and we're going to have some big impacts. And it really, if you look at from my standpoint of my business here on YouTube and the website, and as an automotive journalist, my work will be impacted by this the longer it goes on. I'll have less, I'll have a disruption in what kind of vehicles I'm going to get. I'll have disruption in ad sales. So, why would they keep advertising on this channel for trucks if they can't build them and sell them? I can see some impact there. I can see some impact on some of the trips I go on to drive new vehicles because they may slow down development if they're waiting for, this chain reaction to happen. Again, it's a domino effect. Automakers plan things out in yearly increments of, long-term design and decisions on products. Well, if people are on strike and they can't do their job as well as they used to, or these they're not building things, they could slow down some of those development plans the longer the strike goes on because they may have to push things out. So I think we're all going to be impacted by this. I don't think the UAW is wrong in what they're doing. I think they're doing the right thing, what they should for the membership. I have concerns about the numerous amounts of demands and how high the demands are. That's quite a number. And I'm hoping that both sides get together and figure this out. I think automakers have definitely the CEOs have played a role in having this dynamic where vehicles cost a lot and they get paid a lot. I think they need to be held accountable for that as well. And I think there's a lot of things going in play for all these different automakers and all the people on strikes online. So I'm going to take a very neutral tone because I don't think either side is. I don't want to say I'm right or wrong either side. I'm kind of in the middle of both of it. I can see both points of view as a journalist. That's my job. And so that's kind of where we're at today on Friday, September 15th. So hopefully this doesn't go on very long, and hopefully both sides get together and we're able to hammer this out quickly. Until then, check out more videos over here. Website down below as well, pickuptrucktalk.com. As always, thanks for watching. I will see you down the road.